Good evening. Because we are at the fifth night, it will be necessary to do a little summing up. And as I read the 7th chapter of Matthew, bear in mind two important points. Number one is that this world is governed by cosmic law. There is a universal law, a divine law, cosmic law, that really constitutes God's government of His creation. When we are governed by cosmic law, it is as if we were back in the Garden of Eden before the fall. In other words, we are living completely in the image and likeness of God. We are living completely under spiritual government. And into that realm, no discords come, no inharmonies. There were no sins, there was no disease, there was no death, there was no pain. And that is because man, the spiritual image and likeness of God, was in obedience to the laws that formed and governed him. Now, the exile, the earning of a living by the sweat of the brow, the bringing forth children or creation in pain, that came with disobedience to cosmic law. Now then, we are told about a first Adam and we're told about a last Adam. And the last Adam is, of course, Christ. And who is Christ? The sinning Adam, when he has come back into obedience, when he has come back under cosmic law. Now, we can wander around in this world for 40 years with Moses before we approach the promised land, or we can wander around with the Hebrew people all the way from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob right up to Jesus Christ. That's a long, long time to be wandering around with victories and defeats and victories and defeats, good and evil, good and evil. Or we can bridge the span in a 3 years ministry with the Master. But the point is that we are the children of God. We are God's offspring. We are God's selfhood in individual expression. But as humans, we are in disobedience to cosmic law. And it is for that reason that we are having as much difficulty as if we were electricians hooking up our electrical apparatus contrary to electrical law. I don't have to tell you the trouble you would be in, or driving an automobile through a city and deciding that it makes no difference what the traffic laws are. We're going ahead on our own way. Well, you would have just as many bumps and shoves and accidents and pushes as we get as humans in our human span of life. And for the same reason, When you are in disobedience to a cosmic law, there is no question of whether or not we will get away with it, whether or not we will be caught, because cosmic law cannot be violated without bringing instantaneously its penalty with it. Now, as humans, we are still that divine spiritual being, but in disobedience to the laws of harmony, to the laws of grace. To prove that, the moment you come back under grace, that is, in obedience to cosmic law, you are the same person. You look in the mirror and you'll see the same person, but you will no longer be in discords and inharmonies in your human existence, because now you will be riding with the law instead of against it. Now, there are two cosmic laws given us by the Master, two cosmic laws that pertain to our, call it religious life, but actually it's our individual life in all walks. And the first cosmic law is the first commandment. Now, that has a wider connotation than it would seem, since most people would say that they are obedient to the first commandment, that they do not have any other gods but one, and that they worship only one God. But I'm sure you know that there is not one of us in this room actually completely obedient to that law. Why? Because all of us have something or other which is a power apart from God, something that we bow down to and let govern us rather than our governing it. Certainly, we put many things before God. That is, we put many things as power, but the one. Now, it is a matter of training to get back and acknowledge, first of all, God as one. And the greatest help to that is a Hebrew quotation. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. This is the greatest help there is in our attempts to bring ourselves in obedience to the cosmic law of one God. The reason is this. There are times when there is a claim present in our experience of a power apart from God, probably some person that we fear, some circumstance, some condition. It might even be a war or a bomb. But if that claim presents itself to us, that fear, and we answer it with, the Lord our God is one, the power, our power is one power, well then if God is the one power, then this person or this thing or this circumstance that I'm fearing is not power. And then as you hold yourself in line with that, not by repetition, but by constant assurance and reassurance, by reminding oneself over and over again, wait a minute, that God is the only power. God is one. Our God is one. There's only one power. I do not have to fear a bomb. I do not have to fear weather. I do not have to fear climate. I do not have to fear a war. I do not have to fear a depression, or germs, or whatever it is that rises up and gives us a sense of fear. With some people, it's the fear of unemployment. With others, it's the fear of a depression. With others, it's the fear of the loss of their money. With some, it's the fear of germs. Now, whatever it is that appears to us and sets up a sense of fear, our answer must be, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Then there's only one power. Now, on another occasion, our particular fear may be death. And here again we'll bring up, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one." One what? One life. One life? Yes, there's only one life. Well then, if there's only one life, and that's God, life is immortal. And as you come to see the immortality of the life which is God, it inevitably follows that sooner or later you will lose all sense of even having a life apart from God, and there will be no sense in it of age or of death. Now, there is no way to prevent age or death by affirmations or by knowing some truth. There's no way on earth of that. There is only one way, and that is to come to the understanding of God as immortality. The moment you see God as the only life, you're through with all fears of age or death, because there can't be any, to the life which is God. But then you say, my life. The commandment says God is the only life. There is only one God, therefore there is only one life. And that life neither ages, nor changes, nor dies. No. If you insist on having a life apart from God, then it makes no difference how you try to beat age or death. You cannot do it. No one in this world ever can have a life apart from God and maintain it in health or harmony for very long. It is only as we give up our personal sense of life, it is only as we lose our life that we gain our life. Only as we lose, only as you lose your life, the Master tells us, do you gain life eternal. And so it is, and in proportion as you can see that you have no life, the only life you have is God. I mean, you have no life of your own. You have no life separate from God. There is only this one life. Gradually, as this becomes a fixed truth in your consciousness, you lose this sense of my life. Well, now the same thing is true of supply. There's only one reason why we ever have difficulty with supply, and that's because we believe there is such a thing as my supply, and there isn't. There isn't. There's only one supply, and it's infinite, and that supply is God. Now, as soon as we lose our sense of personal life or our sense of personal supply, then the whole of the cosmic supply unfolds, because all that the Father hath is mine. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. The silver is his and the gold is his. And the moment you understand that, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. The silver is his, the gold is his. But he says, son, all that I have is thine. That completes the entire circle of what we would call treatment or the truth about supply. But only in proportion as you lose your sense of personal life or personal supply do you come into the realization of cosmic supply, universal or divine supply. Now, love, same thing. The whole world is upset because there isn't enough love. There isn't enough love between married couples. There isn't enough love between parents and children. There isn't enough love between friends and relatives. There isn't enough love between communities. And certainly there's not enough love between boundaries. No. No, it is only in a place like Canada and the United States where they seem to have developed some sense anyhow, of love across the border. But elsewhere, there's that great big border, and you'd think it was my people and your people instead of God's people. Now, with this lack of love, you will discover in this work a great secret, that the longer you try to perpetuate personal love, the longer you will be met with loves today and hates tomorrow. Love today and indifference tomorrow. It is only when you begin to catch the vision, which is in that love and gratitude, that you begin to find love. And then you find it from 1,000 different angles and from 1,000 different sources, and if you travel the world, from 1,000 different sources. And that is this: give up this idea that we can love or be loved by anyone. God alone is love. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Therefore, love is one. There is only one love, and that is the love of God for His creation. There is no other love in the world. Now, as you meet with people, if instead of looking to them for love, you will look just above their head and realize that the love of God is pouring through them to you, and the love of God is pouring through you to them, you will have love on the right basis. You will then be in a position to find that love will flow to you from 90% of all the people you meet, and a greater love than you have ever known, a higher type of love, one which is less selfish and one which is less subject to change. Now, if I say I love you, that may be true at this moment, but nobody's going to give a guarantee that that'll be true next year. If you say you love me, that may be true this minute, but who knows what it may be next year. But if we will both be honest with each other and say, look, I am an instrument through which the love of God flows to this world, then we'll all love each other forever. Then we will never look to each other for love. We will never look to each other for anything. We will be looking to the love of God flowing through the world. And then that 10% who temporarily are not subject to God and the powers of God will just drift out of our experience, and we'll be left with all of those of our own household, those who are subject to divine guidance. But the great secret of love, once we get away from the personal sense of love, is to realize that we are instruments through which the love of God flows out here to you. You are instruments through which the love of God flows to me, but God doesn't necessarily need you as instruments. And so I'm not dependent on you. I'm dependent only on the love of God. Then if you move away, there'll be somebody else here. In the same way, you will never be dependent on me. That was one of the dangers in the Master's day. He had to tell them finally, if I go not away, the Comforter will not come to you. They were so busy looking to Him personally. But if you realize that I am but an instrument through which love and truth flows, and that it's really God flowing through, then it makes no difference what happens to me. It makes no difference if I retire. It makes no difference if I pass on to a different plane. As long as you are looking to God to flow as love and truth, my going or coming will not harm your demonstration. And your going or coming will not affect my demonstration, because I'm seeking it only in, through, from God. Always God is one, and therefore life is one, love is one, substance is one, supply is one, activity is one. You see, we think of activity of organs and functions of the body, and we think that that action is in the organs and functions of the body, and it isn't. The organs and functions of the body are as dead as this hand. As far as this hand is concerned, it could stay there 1,000,000 years. There has to be an I to move it. I say up, and I say down, and I say right, and I say left, and the hand is the instrument which obeys. So is every organ and function of the body subject unto the Spirit, which is God. Now, an organ and function can't work or move in and of itself if there isn't an activity of consciousness, an activity of God. Therefore, we can say all activity is one. There is only one activity. There is no digestive activity. There is no eliminative activity. There is no growing activity. There is only a spiritual activity of God which functions through the body. And so there is only one God, one activity. Now, in obeying the first commandment, no matter what subject comes up, remember that there is only one God, one life, one soul, one spirit, one being. You may even be in fear of persons. Then it's good to remember there is only one person, since if God is one and God is infinite, there can't be an infinite God and some other number. There can only be one. Whether that one appears infinitely makes a difference. It's like there's only one do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. And there's only one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can multiply them 1,000,000,000 times, but there is still only one. And there's only one life. Even though that one life appears in your garden in 12 different species of flowers and fruits, there's still only one life permeating that garden. And so you may think that there are 50 or 60 lives in this room. No. There's only one life expressed 50 times in individual expression. But one life, one soul, one being, one person. Now, you can never fear a person if you remember that God is one. Therefore, there can only be one person. You never can fear a condition if you remember that God is one, and so there is only one. And that one is spirit, perfect, spiritual, harmonious, so forth. Now, all of this would be simple if we hadn't been brought up as humans to fear everything and almost everybody. But because we have been brought up in such fear, it now becomes a matter of discipline. That is why the Master says that so few enter, so few find it. Why? It is a matter of discipline. You are continuously faced with the temptation to fear, to doubt. You are continuously faced with the appearance of discord. And so it's a matter of training to bring yourself back to the realization there is only one. And that one being God, there is only harmony, so forth and so on. Now, of course, we could carry that out. We could talk about that for hours and hours and hours. But you will find that in Scripture in different ways, but you will find it summed up in that booklet, Love and Gratitude. And I have told our students many times that I think the principle that is given in Love and Gratitude is the deepest principle I have yet found in this study. Now, the second cosmic law is the love thy neighbor as thyself. And here you have 1,000 different ways of bringing yourself in obedience to that particular commandment or cosmic law. One of them is in that commandment of not bearing false witness against thy neighbor. And the other is in the 25th chapter of Matthew, in which we are told the many ways in which we should serve each other. Now, each one can make a measuring rod for themselves. The Master used a very good one: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And for a while it becomes a matter of training whenever we are about to say or do anything. Is this what I would like done to me? And of course for a while we'll go ahead and do it anyhow, but at least through training we will come to the place where we will not act as we would not like to be acted upon. Now, obedience to these two cosmic laws would reestablish us in Eden, and we would become that last man, that last Adam, Christ. That is all that is necessary to establish harmony in our experience, is coming into oneness with cosmic law. And so, as we learn to obey those two, we will find the discords and the inharmonies dropping away. I've shown you how many times that has worked out where people have come into conflict with others individually, like the two instances that I explained of meeting the intoxicated men. There have been so many other instances that come up in this work. For well, there was an instance recently of an office in which the men insisted, which was their right, of smoking constantly throughout the day and making it a very uncomfortable thing for a couple of girls in the office who didn't smoke. Now really, there not only was no way to get those men to stop smoking, but actually it would have been an injustice to expect it or to ask it, since smoking was really a part of those men's habits and probably a need, and it would have worked a hardship to have a rule passed that they couldn't smoke. But one of these girls, a student, worked on it from the spiritual standpoint of realizing that there is only one. There is no such thing as mortals, no such thing as men. There is only the one infinite being. That one infinite being is the one. And of course, in that one and in that oneness, there is no discord and no inharmony and no injustice to anyone. And it was only a few days of that type of prayer when the manager of the office said that he felt that it was an injustice to the girls to subject them to that, since they didn't smoke, and would the men mind using his office when they wanted to smoke. And so the recognition of one changed that circumstance. Now, this same thing has worked in law cases. The same thing has worked in every walk of life where we are up against injustice, unkindness, uncooperativeness in another. Just abiding by that oneness, that one, recognizing only one God, one manifestation of God, one Son of God, one spiritual manifestation, and then watching how everything conformed to that pattern. In the same way, the moment that I begin to have opinions about the people I meet, whether they're good or bad or bright or not bright, I set up in them a resistance when they meet me. In other words, if I would have a mental concept of this individual as being not likable, and this individual as being unjust, and this individual as being something else, untruthful, they detect that, they feel that, and they recoil, and they set up a barrier against me. Now, if I am in obedience to cosmic law, I understand loving my neighbor as myself, not bearing false witness against my neighbor. I refuse to have a concept of anybody, and I maintain within my own being that Christ is individual, true identity. And so when I meet people, instead of looking at them, it is my habit to look through them. I'm apt to look behind their left ear, back where the invisible becomes visible, or sometimes glance at their eyes, because the eyes are the windows of the soul, and I can look back there and know that God sits back there looking through. And in that way, not judging whether they're good or bad, not caring too much whether they're good or bad, but knowing their true identity, there's no barrier goes up, there's no resentment, they feel no pressure, they don't feel any looking down at each other, and that makes for harmony. That is the same as Alan Boone has brought out in the animal world, that when you don't look down at an animal, but look right at him and understand him to be a brother, another of God's creatures and creations, that you make a friend of that animal. And you do it by refusing to have any concept of the animal, but know the truth about it. So it is with us in our experience. Let us not form human concepts of each other. In psychology, you are supposed to know whether a person is honest or dishonest or good or bad. And I'm surprised that they still believe that, since one of the big magazines, I think it was Look or Life, had an experiment one time, and they published the photographs of 50 or 60 men and women, and had their readers select those who were criminals and those who were very respectable citizens. And you would be shocked at the result of it. There were just as many picked incorrectly as picked correctly. In other words, nobody that wrote in really knew who was honest or who was dishonest, and the proportion showed that when they were right, it was as much guesswork as when they were wrong. And I'm sure you know that yourself. If crooks look like crooks, they couldn't be crooks because they couldn't get away with it. It's because they look so charming and innocent that they're able to cash checks and run up charge accounts. No, people do not always look outwardly what they are inwardly, because there is an art of acting, there is an art of putting a mask over one's face and feelings. But you make no mistake if you refuse to judge, if you will judge no man, if you will not sit in judgment, but always recognize Christ. You see, that is the higher form of not bearing witness against thy neighbor. The lower form, the form of the human, would be merely not to gossip about him or not to repeat rumor or scandal. But on the spiritual plane, the way that we do not bear false witness is by having no judgment of them, no criticism, no condemnation, but looking through to their Christhood. And so between these two commandments, we really can find ourselves in heaven, in harmony, in completeness, in perfection. Now then, because these are two laws which are so broad in scope that an average person might not be able to pick them apart and see how to obey them or come into obedience to them, the Master gave us this 5th, 6th, and 7th chapter of Matthew, which really breaks down those two laws into 100 different modes and means of obeying them, of bringing oneself into obedience to them. And incidentally, it might interest you to know that last night was an important landmark in my life, because I read the Bible for 13 years before I was a practitioner, and it's nearly 25 years now that I've not been reading it but studying it. And not until this week was I able to read 5th, 6th, and 7th chapter of Matthew's, because they were closed books to me. And as many times as people have asked me to talk and write on the subject of the Sermon on the Mount, I have always had to refuse and say, I'm sorry, I don't understand them. I don't know what they mean. I don't know why they're in the book. I've been reading them and studying them, and I've read what others have written about them, but I don't get any feel out of them. And until I do, I will not be able to do anything with them. But about 2 days before this class began, the voice said to me that in this class we would have the Sermon on the Mount. And I thought, that's strange, because I still don't get it. But it began right after that, and yesterday afternoon it blossomed. And so last night it was as clear as a bell that in giving us the Sermon on the Mount, the Master was giving us ways in which we could bring ourselves in obedience to cosmic law. He said very definitely, blessed art thou when you are doing this, that, or the other thing, and you must do this and you must not do that. Why? Not because of any rules he was laying down, but, he said, in order that you may be the children of God. And so there's the whole object of the 5th, 6th, and 7th chapters of Matthew. Do these things so that you may be the children of God. That is, that you may be demonstrating your Christhood, that you may again return to the kingdom of heaven. And so I'm sure that from now on we're going to have a lot more come through on this, but at least last night was the beginning of it. And in case any of you have any delayed demonstrations and care to think of the 39 years I've been waiting for yesterday, why, just be patient a little longer, because it may come in that 39th or 40th year as it did with Moses. Moses and Joel hit it along about the 40th year. Well, again, you see, this is the 7th chapter of Matthew. He says, judge not, that ye be not judged. And there is your entire principle, which is given in many of our tape recordings in this past year. In our teaching of the word is, of God as is, you will find this principle of judge not. It is based on this. I look out here and see you, and I agree immediately that I know nothing about you. I agree only that you are, you exist, you is. You actually exist. You are. What you are, why you are, who you are, I know nothing about that. That's all a blank to me. But I can admit this because I know it's to be true. I know it to be true. You exist. Now, by taking that attitude, you exist, and then listening, in rushes the truth about you. And the truth about you is, of course, God expressed. In healing work, we'll come to that, because that's what we're going to take up tonight, after we get through with this little preliminary. In healing work, a patient may say that they have this, that, or the other thing, and I, if I go into the silence, will say, Father, I know nothing about this. I don't know anything about rheumatism. I don't know anything about consumption. I don't know anything about lameness. I only know one thing. There's an is here. There's something here that exists. It has existence because I'm aware of it. I'm conscious of it. But what it is, I don't know. According to the appearance, according to what is claimed, it's a discord, it's an inharmony, it's a sin, it's a disease. But Father, we know better than that. God made all that was made, so it can't be that. But it is. Now what is it? And then I get silent and I sit and this comes. And sometimes the voice will say, this is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. And other times it will say, this is the Christ of God. And other times it will say, why, this is me. At other times it says nothing but gives me a complete release. And so it is that for 2 years now, we have been working all of our work through the Word Is. There's a book now being published in London, and we're going to have 1,500 copies of it in about October. And it's based entirely on God as is. It's based entirely on living our lives through the understanding of is. Judge not, that ye be not judged. And in judging not, don't ever accept what is told you, not only about any other person, but about their own conditions. Don't accept anything that anyone tells you about themselves, except one thing: acknowledge that it is. What it is you don't know, it is. Something is. Then, in this silence, let God tell you what it is. And you'll find out that it's always something good, because the secret is in the first chapter of Genesis, there isn't anything bad. God made all that was made. And everything God made is good. And if God didn't make it, it never was made, so it has no existence. So regardless of any appearance out in this world, of this you may be sure, everything is good. But we won't label it so. We won't label it good for fear that tomorrow we may say it's not quite so good. We will merely label it as is. It is. It exists. What exists, what it is, I don't know. Father, it's up to you to define. Then when the Father defines it, it is revealed as harmony. If you indulge denial, you are merely trying to put away something that belongs to God, that is in and of God, because there isn't anything at all in the world that isn't in and of God. And so you're merely declaring by your denial that something is not of God. Now watch the change when you learn, judge not, that ye be not judged. And whatever it is, judge not. Somebody is apt to say the weather's bad today. Don't accept that. But on the other hand, someone's apt to say weather's good today. Don't accept that either. Just accept the fact that today is good, or the weather is good. I mean, today is, or the weather is. And then let it be defined from within what that is. And then you'll see the difference in the entire principle of the work. Judge not, that ye be not judged, for with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. So you are always determining what is going to come back at you by what you put out. Now you remember, of course, that throughout our lecture series, we had that subject of the fact that no bread on the waters can ever come back to you if you haven't cast them out there. Because if you touch any bread that's on the waters of life that you didn't put there, you're just taking what belongs to your neighbor, and you are violating a cosmic law. Don't ever think that any good can come to you that you didn't put there. But this doesn't refer to the fact of whether you are humanly charitable or benevolent. Doesn't mean that at all. What it means is, what have you put into the sea of life? You can't put anything material into the sea of life. What truth did you put out? What truth have you cast upon the waters of life? Have you been knowing the truth about your neighbor? Have you been seeing the Christ of individual being? Have you understood God as the only power? Whatever spiritual truth you cast out on the waters of life is all that can be drawn back to you. And in proportion, and we all know this from our old experience, in proportion as we have gone around being good psychologists and judging each other how honest we are, or how dishonest, or how truthful or untrue. In that proportion has the same judgment come right back at us, and it always will. There's no other way. Love is reflected in love. There isn't any question about that. But so is the wrong judgment, measured by the wrong judgment we put out. Now, if I say that you are immortal, you may be assured of this, that that's the measure of existence that's going to come back at me. As long as I can abide in the truth, oh no, God is spirit and you are spiritual, that is the measure that is coming back unto me. If I say that you are heir of God, joint heir with Christ in God, to all the heavenly riches, that's the measure of riches that's coming back to me. I must cast bread upon the waters if I am to receive bread from the waters. And remember this, that if I dare touch anybody else's bread, I'm interfering with cosmic law, because that bread's on its way back to them, and I'm just breaking up cosmic purpose and intent if I touch the other fellows, and that's where wrecked lives come in. Reaching out for what belongs to the other fellow, and more especially in a spiritual sense, not giving unto our neighbor that which is rightfully his. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Well, of course, as metaphysical practitioners, we are really more sinners in that direction than our patients are, because there are very few practitioners who can't tell their patients what's wrong with them. Oh, that's so easy to tell them how loving they should be, and kind and generous and forgiving and so forth and so on. But you see, that is not a spiritual practice. That is a psychological practice that never works. There is only one spiritual practice, and that is to tell your patient, knowest thou not? You are the child of God. Your body is the temple of God. Your life is the very life of God. Well, at first, of course, the patient doesn't like it, because I know myself better than that, and I know I'm not quite that good. But it's very easy to get used to the idea of being good. And if you just remind them occasionally that divine authority tells us that we were born of God, pretty soon they will commence to realize that, at least if they're not acting up to it, that their potentiality is and their reality is God being. And then pretty soon the outer action begins to conform to it. But let us, in our practice, please not be the kind of practitioners that always know what's wrong with the patient and wants to tell him how to improve himself. Because even if we succeed in making him a better human, we will not make a spiritual demonstration for him. Even if psychologically we could point out their faults, and even if they had the power to correct them, they would just be a good human instead of a bad one, and there still would be no spiritual demonstration in evidence. A spiritual demonstration is brought about when you refuse to see good or evil in your patient or student and continue to behold the Christ in them, regardless of what they may be doing to deserve a different title. Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eyes, then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. Yes, we can overcome anyone's fault, but not by trying to overcome their fault by beholding the Christ of their being and holding steadfastly to it. Then the mote or beam drops out of them. You see, all of this, 5th, 6th, 7th, are somewhat like the Ten Commandments. They're admonitions given to us to give us a guide to bring us back into and under cosmic law. The cosmic law is two. Have only one God, one power, and love thy neighbor as thyself. Now here is the way to go about bringing yourself under those cosmic laws. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet, and turn again and rend you. You see, while it is true that Christ is the true identity of everyone, it's one thing for me to be knowing it, and it's quite another thing for them not to know it about themselves. And so, when you come, the right thing is to remind you and to give you every bit of truth that lies within the teacher's capacity. But certainly not to voice it downstairs. Certainly not to voice it out on the street, for the simple reason there isn't receptivity there. Where there is receptivity, an individual is reaching out for it. You will never have to go to them. They will find you. And so there is never any need to proselyte. There is never any need to tell anyone unasked about the truth of being, because that way lies hardships. Never, never give of the deeper truths except in proportion as there is a readiness, and don't give any truth at all unless it's asked for. I have found in my experience that it is sometimes a good thing where I see people struggling to ask them if they have ever tried metaphysics or would care to, and if they indicate any readiness, merely to hand them a pamphlet or a book and then let them go their way and pick up their own canoe from there on. But never try to lead them to a practitioner, never try to lead them to take up truth. No, no, no. Let them find their own way. Give the suggestion, offer the drop of cold water, a cup of cold water, and then let them pick it up from there, because urging it on a person really will not give it. If there isn't a readiness inside for it, all the urging in the world won't help. And now we come to those controversial passages. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For every one that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. And the controversy comes in there as to why we shouldn't ask for new shoes or a new automobile or a house or a trip around the world. And the reason is that God is spirit. And when we go to God, we must go in spirit and in truth. And the asking and the knocking, the seeking, is not for things, but is for God itself. And when we ask God for God, and we'll come to that in the healing work, when we ask God, when we knock at the door of consciousness for truth, when we search and seek for truth, that's what we find. Then when we find truth, because it's infinite, it includes all of these other things that we were seeking. Or what man is there of you, whom if his son ask bread, will he give him a stone? Or if he ask a fish, will he give him a serpent? If ye then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father which is in heaven give good things to them that ask him? Therefore all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them, for this is the law and the prophets. Here is the cosmic law. Those two. Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat, because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. We all know the answer to that. Beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? Even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. And of course, tree refers again to the tree of life, and the tree of life refers to consciousness. And so it is that every consciousness that isn't pure cannot bring forth good spiritual fruit. And a corrupt consciousness cannot bring forth spiritual fruit. A spiritual consciousness cannot bring forth bad fruit. And so it is, out of a consciousness of spirit must come good. Out of the materialistic or personal sense of consciousness, there must come limitation, finiteness, or what the world calls evil. Now, how do we know when a consciousness is good? There is only one way. If it points to God as the only power, if it points to love fulfilling the law, that's the whole answer. When anything else enters, you are dealing with a corrupt consciousness. That is, I don't mean corrupt in the sense of evil, I mean corrupt in the sense of not spiritual. There is lots of material consciousness, there is lots of theological consciousness, which from a human standpoint is good, but is corrupt according to the standard of spirituality. So, in using the term corrupt, it does not necessarily mean humanly corrupt or evil. It means corrupt in the sense of not being purely spiritual. And so it is that we will not dare say ever that differing religious beliefs are corrupt, but we will say this, that out of a state of consciousness that is not dealing purely with God as the infinite being, one, or with a doctrine of love thy neighbor as thyself, showing forth love as the fulfilling of the law, it is corrupt insofar as it is not wholly and purely spiritual. The moment any any teaching, any religious teaching, binds a person in any way, it is not of the pure spirit. If it limits, if it binds, if it prevents, it limits, because a pure spiritual teaching must be like that of the Master. It must set everybody free, so that they are free in God, so that they are free to be God-governed, God-directed, to receive their illumination from God, to receive their understanding from God. They must be free, and the function of the teacher or the teaching must only be to lead a person back to the kingdom of God within their own being, not transfer their allegiance from one person to another or from one church to another. No. But to set them free within their own being, so that the teacher and the teaching merely become instruments through which the individual, the student, finds their complete union with God and no longer needs the teacher or the teaching. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. That you can take into your own consciousness and find the answer. Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And every one that heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. Again, it appears in all of the writings, the statement of these truths, whether in this oral form or written form or the recorded form, is but one part of our religious experience, and the least. The most important is doing them, taking them into one's consciousness and making them a part of their own living. It really benefits no one to hear a sermon on the first commandment, and love thy neighbor as thyself. The only possible benefit is if it serves as a reminder to an individual to take them into their consciousness, hold them up as a yardstick, base their life upon them, and then come into that Christ consciousness, which is cosmic consciousness, under cosmic law. That is why in our work I have said that there is no benefit and would be no benefit in organizing. The only benefit is what the individual can get by the study and the practice and application of these great truths that we have here.